He rebuilds Jerusalem's Temple Mount. The whole temple of the Jews is redone.
The second temple, Herod's temple.
Yes, it's technically actually a third temple, okay?
True.
And here he takes a sand dune in an area of swamps and creates the biggest man-made port, not just in this region, in the whole Roman Empire.
Coming up on Stakelbeck Tonight, welcome to Caesarea. This was one of the most strategic port cities of the entire Roman Empire, built by Herod the Great on the shores of the Mediterranean. Today it's home to some incredibly well-preserved Roman ruins. But Caesarea was also home to some of the most important events of the New Testament, from the centurion Cornelius and the Apostle Peter to the imprisonment of the Apostle Paul. Even Pontius Pilate had a role to play in this city. And today, our good friend Danny the Digger Herman is back to show us how this site is where Christianity went from a local Jewish movement to a global one. Stakelbeck Tonight starts now.
Well, Danny the Digger, it is great to have you back with us here.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, man.
And what a nice day today.
Incredible. And we are at one of the most important ports of the ancient Roman world. That's number one, Danny. Number two, one of the most iconic and pivotal sites in the New Testament. Where are we right now?
Totally. Welcome to Caesarea Maritima, okay? Caesarea in Hebrew. The city that was named after Augustus' family, Julius Caesar, who turned Rome into an empire, and then his adopted son becomes the sole ruler, and his vassal king here in Judea is Herod the Great. And Herod, once he's appointed by him, he has to show his gratitude. So he builds a whole city and names it after him. Now, Caesarea is a city that was known for a few places. This is the Caesarea by the sea, Caesarea Maritima.
Beautiful, the shores of the Mediterranean. We have some people actually fishing behind us as well.
Totally, and yet 2,000 years ago, Herod founded this city for what he created behind me, a port. The biggest man-made port in the whole Roman Empire at that time was created by that Herod. He was an amazing entrepreneur, and we are standing in what used to be his own very private palace.
Wow.
Your feet are an original mosaic floor from Herod's time.
2,000 years old.
Yes, connecting the parts by the on the land to a whole section that was right on the water, Eric. This rectangular pool was either for fishing or for swimming. The pedestal in the middle is maybe where there was a sculpture of either Herod or Augustus himself. And the only thing left of it today is that was built up is the wall on the left side. Imagine a two-story building here showing Herodian wealth.
Wow, and you know, he called this place, Danny, Caesarea, in honor of Augustus Caesar.
Yes.
This was the king of Israel at the time, Herod the Great, renaming this spot after a Roman emperor. This must not have gone over too well with the Jewish people here in the land of Israel.
Of course, the Jews were controlled by the Maccabees for over 100 years until the Romans show up. And then this guy, Herod, convinces them, put me in charge. I'll be a better tax collector than the Jewish one.
Yeah.
Okay? And they are convinced, or Augustus is convinced. And he has to deliver. Taxing the people to a maximum level is not enough. He has to generate more economical traffic.
Wow.
And he becomes, Eric, in retrospect, the biggest entrepreneur in the history of this land. He rebuilds Jerusalem's Temple Mount. The whole temple of the Jews is redone.
The second temple, Herod's temple.
Yes, it's technically actually a third temple, okay?
True.
And here he takes a sand dune in an area of swamps and creates the biggest man-made port, not just in this region, in the whole Roman Empire.
The master builder of Israel. You and I have gone to these sites. Now we're at Caesarea. Herodium, Masada, the second temple.
Even in Jordan, Machaerus.
Yes.
Okay? We've viewed about 3 or 4 of his sites already. And
yeah, his legacy is still felt today in the land.
Totally. And the guy really transformed this land, not just economically, but also culturally. Behind us over here, you have a theater. a hippodrome, okay, bathhouses. Herod also brings Roman culture into this land. Mosaic floors are introduced in his days with these geometric decorations, and he will really change this land in an unprecedented way.
Yeah, and we're standing on one of those mosaic floors right now, as you said, Danny, 2,000 years old. And one of the things that strikes me about Caesarea, in addition to the history, obviously, pretty well preserved, the ruins here. The Roman Theater here, which we'll see in a bit, is incredible.
Yes, the city flourished for about 1,000 years, but once the Crusaders are expelled, sand covers up the remains and it preserves them. This specific floor was exposed in the 1970s, and look, the original part is to a great extent intact. And we will see the hippodrome, the bathhouse. Most of the port has sunk, but the parts that are still visible are also very, very impressive.
Yeah. The other thing we need to get into, Danny, is look, this was a pivotal site in the New Testament. I'm talking the apostles Paul and Peter. Give us a little background on Paul's history here in Caesarea from the book of Acts.
He goes to Jerusalem and starts preaching, and the priests don't like him. So the priest eventually convinces the Romans to put him on trial, but Paul says, wait, I'm a citizen. I'm not just someone living in the province. I'm a Roman citizen. I have a right to be tried by the emperor himself.
That was a big deal when he said, look, I'm a Roman citizen. They're ready to beat Paul. They were kind of smacking him around. And he says, hey, wait a minute. You don't know who you're hitting here. To be a Roman citizen, a huge deal in the ancient world.
Yes, they had tax exemptions. They had more rights. So the governor says, okay, you want to be sent to Rome? I'll send you to Rome. And we don't know why, once he's brought here to Caesarea, instead of being put on the first boat sailing to Rome, he's actually kept here for 2 years in the local prison.
Yeah, he's in prison for 2 years, the Apostle Paul, after, the ruckus in Jerusalem. And we actually have the spot where he just might have been imprisoned right here in Caesarea, and you're going to show us, right?
A relatively new find from the 1990s has presented possible evidence. I don't have proof, but possible circumstantial evidence for the location of the prison of Paul here in Caesarea.
Well, let's go take a look.
Let me show you.
Danny, lead the way. Okay, Danny, so we left off in Jerusalem. The Apostle Paul is there. He's preaching the gospel. The priests do not like it. They lay hands on him. They arrest him. They start to physically assault him. He says, wait a minute, how dare you? I am a Roman citizen and
I have rights.
I have rights. I appeal to Caesar. I'm going to Rome to state my case. Now they back off. They say, uh-oh, he's a Roman citizen. But on his way to Rome, he makes a rather long pit stop right here in Caesarea. Why?
First of all, this is the only proper functioning city with a port. Over 100 cargo boats could dock in what Herod created. But we don't know why he's not put on the first boat sailing to Rome, but he's actually kept here for 2 years.
Wow.
The text says he's kept in the Praetorium of Caesarea. Now we know Praetorium is a place of trials. Jesus was sentenced in the Praetorium of Jerusalem. Was there a trial place over here? That's what archaeology suggests. First of all, you have at the entrance 2 inscriptions attesting to the existence of a police unit over here. And this very hall where you are standing, Eric, with this pavement is suggested to be the place where prisoners and people appealing to the governor would appear.
Wow, so this is kind of where you're appearing before the judge in a sense. The place you mentioned with the 2 inscriptions, Danny, that's the possible site of Paul's actual imprisonment. From AD 58 to AD 60, roughly. Now, before he got the chance to appeal in this very spot 2,000 years ago where we're standing right now, there was an attempt at a bribe by the Roman governor. Tell us about that.
At first, when he appears in front of the governor Felix, maybe right over here, Felix even offers him bribery to release the case, but it doesn't happen. He stays here. Maybe he then writes some of the epistles while he's in prison. And then a new governor called Festus is in position. He appears in front of him again. Agrippus II comes for a visit and he talks to him as well, which is a very interesting dialogue. He almost convinces him.
He does. You know, the Bible says King Herod Agrippa comes here with his wife. And he's with, now, the governor Festus, as you said, succeeded Felix. Felix never got that bribe. Paul never caved. He stuck to his guns, as was his MO. But Herod Agrippa is here. And Paul, Danny again, possibly standing where we are standing right now, appeals to Herod Agrippa. And he says, what's the problem? Herod, you believe in the resurrection of the dead. I'm being persecuted because I believe in the resurrection of the dead. I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And a great uproar ensues, and people are arguing and they're disagreeing.
Yeah.
All right here.
It may have happened at this very location.
This was the last time from here in Caesarea, Danny, that the Apostle Paul set foot in the land of Israel. This was it.
Yes.
And once he left for Rome, he never returned.
Yes.
This was his final departure point from Israel,
Yes.
Caesarea.
Both he and Peter. Christianity, if you wish, moves from here to Rome.
Yeah. The gospel, arguably the two most important disciples of Jesus, from here, left for Rome. The gospel, in essence, folks, went out
Yes.
from
And
Caesarea.
we're going to talk also about Peter and another major event that happens in Caesarea
Yes.
later on in the show.
But before we do that, you've got a treat for us, right?
Yes, if you zoom out and look around you, you can see just how Roman was the city that Herod created. Yes, he's governing over the Jews, but he's put here by the Romans. When he wants to show the Romans just how Roman he was. So he's the first one to introduce a theater. A very well-preserved theater is used to this day, Eric, for concerts.
Wow.
Look at this, eh?
Danny?
One of the best examples of Herod's Romanization of the land, introducing a theater in this case.
Absolutely incredible. I am astounded at how well preserved this 2,000-year-old Roman theater is.
Yes, it's in such good condition that they actually use it today as well.
Yeah, still, I have actually been, Danny, to shows here, musical concerts right here in this theater.
Rock operas, concerts,
Yeah.
Israeli performers, international performers, you name it. This is such a magical place to see a performer with the Mediterranean there
Yeah.
in the back. It's
right
really
there.
a great place.
Yeah, the backdrop really, I think, makes it, in a sense, you're looking out not only at the stage, the performer, but the Mediterranean. Now, Danny, we are sitting inside an incredibly well-preserved Roman theater, but what is the difference between a theater and an amphitheater?
Yes, a lot of people mistakenly think that this is an amphitheater. A lot of Israelis call it amphitheatron. Amphi means a double, like an amphibian, okay? This is not an amphibian performance. It's a place for theatrum, a place where you watch and see a play in front of you. The Romans will take that Greek concept and attach two theaters together, mostly for blood shows. But this is not the case. This is a place where you still saw the classical comedy and tragedy of Greek script writers. You would have the orchestra, which was the choir standing here in the middle, and the whole thing with the Mediterranean in the back.
Yeah, Danny, as you said, there were no blood sports here in the theater, thankfully, but there is an amphitheater in the back, also well preserved, and a hippodrome. Wow, you think of the movie Ben-Hur,
Yeah.
the famous chariot races. What would have gone down in that
Yeah.
hippodrome?
Horse races was also part of a Roman type of entertainment, and Herod is the one to bring Roman culture in all its might. Theaters, amphitheaters, hippodromes, bathhouses, you name it.
The master
and
builder.
this one is so well preserved. An Italian team actually excavated here already in the 1960s in search of sculptured remains in the backstage. Among others, they actually found where the stairway is a stone that was recycled. Originally in Roman times, it was used to mark the entry to a temple that was built by Pontius Pilatus.
Pontius Pilate.
Yes, the governor that tried Jesus, that sentenced him to death, was mentioned on an inscription found here. And actually,
In this theater?
Yes, there were dozens of inscriptions found all over Caesarea, some of them highly related to the New Testament.
Now, that Pontius Pilate inscription you mentioned, on a previous show, you took us to the Israel Museum where the actual inscription is kept.
Yes, that's where it's shown to the public. Here at the site, one can see a replica of it. And it's all an amazing testimony for the life here also in the time of the Gospels, in the time of the book of Acts.
Yeah, so wow, another profound New Testament link here in Caesarea. We talked about the Apostle Paul, Danny, now Pontius Pilate.
Yes.
Now we're going to see possibly the most fascinating New Testament link to Caesarea. The Apostle Peter. Very, very strong link and a presence here that had a profound impact on Christianity.
Yes, for me, Caesarea, from a Christian point of view, is mostly important because of the event of Peter and Cornelius, the Roman officer, the first non-Jew to be baptized and accepted to the Christian faith.
And without that, Danny, I would not be sitting here right now as a Gentile Christian.
Yes, very possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's go take a look. Well, Danny, we're wrapping up here in beautiful Caesarea, and we talked about the Apostle Paul, his imprisonment here. Even Pontius Pilate had a role to play here. But to my mind, the most pivotal New Testament event to take place here was the conversion of the Roman centurion Cornelius to Christianity. Set the backdrop for us.
The first non-Jew to accept Jesus. And according to the book of Acts, an angel appears to him and instructs him to send his servants to Jaffa, about 20 miles away.
That's just south of here, on the Mediterranean coastline.
Yes, and why?
Well, at that very time, Danny, the Apostle Peter, Simon Peter, was taking a nap on the roof of Simon the tanner, and he had a vision, a dramatic vision, a sheet coming down from heaven, probably a talit, some believe,
possibly,
with a bunch of unclean animals, unclean according to Jewish law. And the voice of God said, "Arise, Peter, kill and eat." And Peter said, "Not so, Lord. I've never eaten anything impure."
It's against the law of Moses.
It's against the law. And this happens 3 times. And the voice of God says, "What I have made clean, you shall not call impure." 3 times this happens, Danny. At that moment, those servants of Cornelius, 3 of them who you told us about, knock at the door. Peter comes downstairs. They say, "Hey, our master had a vision from the Lord. He wants you to come to Caesarea, here where we're standing right now, to meet Cornelius." And they go on the journey.
Yeah. And as he reaches Caesarea, Cornelius approaches him, greets him, and eventually asks him to baptize him. Now, I can imagine Peter at that moment scratching his head. Hold on.
Yeah.
He's not a Jew. He's not circumcised. He doesn't keep the Sabbath. He doesn't keep kosher, none of this. Okay? But then the Holy Spirit descends.
Comes upon Cornelius and his friends and his relatives who are all gathered there to meet Peter, very excited. And God pours his Spirit out on them. They start speaking in tongues like on Pentecost. Peter takes a step back and says, "Wow, okay, if they've been baptized with the Holy Spirit, surely I can baptize them with water." That's exactly what he does. And man, that sheet that came down in Joppa, now we see. God says they are Gentile, yes, but they're not impure. I've given my word and my Spirit to them as well. And what do we have? Cornelius becomes
A Christian.
a Christian, the very first
non-Jew
Yeah.
to accept Christ.
And it happened here.
It happened here, and nowadays you have 2 billion people that are not Jewish, including you.
That's right.
And it's thanks to the event that happened here.
Yeah, history
This
was, yeah.
Such an amazing moment in Christian history.
Yeah, history was changed here. Folks, I would not be standing here without Cornelius and the events that took place here right in Caesarea. Danny, what a way to close the show.
Yes.
On
What
a
a
high
place,
note, my
what
friend.
a day.
What a place, what a day.
A
As
pleasure.
always, Toda Rabah.
Back in Jerusalem after an incredible day on the shores of the Mediterranean in Caesarea. Now, the book of Acts, chapter 10, makes very clear that Cornelius was respected by all the Jewish people. Folks, that's no coincidence. The book of Genesis says that God will bless those who bless Israel and the Jewish people. That's exactly what Cornelius did, and he in turn was blessed. What an honor, what a privilege to become the first non-Jewish follower of Jesus in all of history. And it all happened in Caesarea.
Stakelbeck Tonight, my all-new nightly series on current events through a bold biblical lens. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching, and God bless.